She is a beloved name in the sport of tennis. Vickie Gunnarsson joins me, director, IMG tennis events, a tournament director for several tournaments. And we're going to tell her story here on the Onto Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, commentator for the USTA, and also work with other entities. And this is an opportunity to really learn what drives Vickie, what powers her through the game of tennis, and what her journey has been like to where she's gotten to today. And Vickie, first of all, I appreciate you doing this. I wanted to go back to your playing days. And I know that you played college tennis. You were really good. Give us an idea of when you were young, the kind of sacrifice that you made in terms of making yourself a tennis player that was at such a high level.
Yeah, Bryan, thanks for having me. First of all, excited to be here. Yeah, so it certainly goes back to my old tennis days. I grew up in Sweden, had a father who was very into tennis and made sure I got introduced to sports. I played soccer and tennis. And I tried it all, gave it all, with certainly lots of sacrifices, especially on more camaraderie, friendship level, I would say, to the point where I actually quit and rebelled a bit for some point. But yeah, I mean, the sport has really given me so much in my career, and really a platform to grow, both professionally and academically.
When you got to college and you were playing for University of Oregon, what would you say was the best match personally you ever played? That was the best exhibit of the kind of tennis player you were?
I had many long matches. First of all, I was definitely a grinder. And I think that describes my style now too. I wish I could finish things off quicker sometimes. But yeah, I'm in it for the grind, for the long run. And I think I've had a lot of long, good matches. And that goes to college and now as well.
And yeah, you're embracing the grind now professionally. And just to give an idea of what is that like, your life embracing the grind behind the scenes and everything you do.
I look, I think being a woman, first of all, I've realized and I've had to fight for what I want. To some degree, I feel like I've had to fight harder than many others with many things. Practice hard, you ask for what you want, and you prove yourself sometimes over and over, which is natural. I think a lot of women in sports face that. So yeah, and thankfully I learned that early on in my tennis and college days.
That strength in your perseverance and being able to always go back to that strength, standing up for yourself, where did you get that? Where did that come from?
I don't know, but my dad told me that one time I was out in the soccer field and I wasn't too interested, but then all of a sudden something turned and I ran back and forth and I started crying when I couldn't get the ball in. So
how much do you see the way in which your tennis journey as a player has taken you in terms of the way you've, I guess you called yourself a grinder on the court, and we saw that there's a parallel to that now working professionally. And how has your relationship with tennis changed, going from somebody who works in events and planning an IMG to a player?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's definitely changed in the now that I'm more in everything commercially in tennis, so not so much on the field itself. The skills are very applicable, I would say. But yeah, it's much more of event execution, event planning, strategizing, selling, and budgeting. So definitely much more commercial aspects that I work with now. but yeah, I mean, certainly all the strengths and skills that I've learned through my tennis days have certainly been applicable. And I'll take it back from when I had finished my master's in Sweden, and I got the opportunity to do a feasibility study of establishing a WTA event in Gothenburg. I was tasked with looking into that. And so I interviewed lots of tournament directors, and I did what was called a stakeholders approach to events. So that really set me up for lots of contacts and knowledge also. So I had one example where I took the train up to Stockholm, and Per Gjertquist was the tournament director at Stockholm Open at the time, later became my boss. But at that time, I camped myself outside his office. I told him I wanted to speak to him. He was super busy, didn't have much time for me because it was in the middle of the tournament. But I did not give up. I sat there until he would speak to me. And finally, after all of that, I got a job with the Gothenburg and Co. To work on the Volvo Ocean Race. And then Per called me and he said, I know I have an opportunity for you to work with the Stockholm Open. Would you be interested? So I think that persistence paid off.
When you talk about that persistence and the challenges of being a woman and continuing to have to, as you said, to prove yourself, when you are able to do the things you are doing and you are able to give others who are trying to go into different ways in which they can be a woman in this industry, how does that sit with you to understand truthfully how much even people you don't know who you are personally and positively impacting to see what you're doing and to give hope to others?
Yeah, I think that's a lot what drives me too, that ability. I get very passionate about working with other men and women and trying to see them succeed. And also sometimes I think where I can be a role model is just for them to watch, like, how and share stories, right? That's what it's all about.
In tournament, when you are in the thick of things, what is it about the way in which you are able to perform at a time when there's always so much going on that allows you to make important decisions when everybody's coming at you and you've got so many things to try and work through?
Yeah, I think I wasn't always great at that. I think in the beginning, it can feel a bit overwhelming. And when you have events are very, you have to multitask a lot. And in the beginning, it got to me and I got a little bit stressed with it. I think experience has taught me how to deal with it. And I'm now quite a calm person. I know that I have to focus on one thing at a time, and that's really the only way to do it. To departmentalize tasks, and yeah, focus on the most urgent topic at hand.
What, on top of being and finding that mentality of being calm in tennis, are you able to do to sort of help you get to that state, maybe outside of tennis, just sort of to deprogram or take your mind off of things?
Yeah, I think sports is a good one. I go cycling or swimming or running or anything, and playing tennis too. I think anything helps. But I think this mentality, actually, sometimes when I'm speaking to my friends, I would give advice to them, like when they're stressed or one ball at a time, right? So that's certainly applicable as well in business. I think sportsmen can understand that mentality.
Another part of it has to be, when you're in charge of these events, the pressure, one, can be hard on themselves because they want everything to be perfect. And you've done so many successful and excellent things, but how are you with yourself? Like, nobody's perfect. Perfectionists, though, are going to be hard on themselves. So how do you deal with that dynamic of like being hard on yourself, reaching and getting to getting the most out of something, and sort of dealing with both sides of that equation?
Yeah, that's certainly not easy. I think I've come to more of an acceptance, and I'm not really striving for perfect anymore. I'm striving for, I'm doing the best I can, and trying to set the goals high but also realistic, and break it down for there so it's not so overwhelming. I think having visions and then goals, and then trying to have quite detailed plans that goes into each month on what needs to be achieved, I think is the best way to deal with it. So it's more process related as well, not only the whole big picture. Obviously a big picture person, but just trying to break it down so it's not too much at once.
Vickie Gunnarsson is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. How do you approach your relationship with the players in terms of, while you're there at a tournament, being there for them, helping them out, and sort of catering to what they need, and you taking that position in relation to them?
Players are obviously very important because we all need them to perform and participate in our events. So we take much pride in that, both in our Abu Dhabi and the San Jose event that I work on. So catering to their needs, making sure that we fulfill their food requirements, and that they feel invited and welcome, and that we go over and beyond in those areas as well. I think in Abu Dhabi we've done an excellent job with that. I think in San Jose we are certainly working on that as well. So it's certainly important. Also finding good hotels, areas for them to stay in, things to do outside of the event certainly is important as well.
What have you surprised yourself in post playing tennis at a high level and now going into the professional space? What have you surprised yourself most about in what you've been able to accomplish? You knew you had a lot in front of you, but in retrospect, to see what you've done since college, what about that is sort of, I guess, surprising in a way that you're proud of yourself in what you did?
Yeah, it's it's actually funny because I've never had I want to be a director, or I've never really had aspirations for a certain titles. It's kind of just happened to me. I remember one time I was looking at the map and thinking, I could see myself working on the Miami Open or working one of those tournaments and being part of that organization. So I've certainly looked at that and thought about it. But yes, to some extent, I think it's gone better than I expected. And I think I haven't really been focused on, again, the end goal. I've just been focused on here and now, and how can I do a good job with what I have now, and kind of what's next in front of me. If I'm not challenged, I'm letting people know that I'm ready for the next thing. So for me, it's been a lot about learning. What can I do to learn more, grow more? The competitive nature in me is obviously asking for more. Sometimes when I'm not sure if I need another title or anything, but it's certainly, I feel like it's also important with the acknowledgement sometimes, and it's just the drive that I want to be a role model, right? For others, and for others to see it's also possible. I think that drives me. And just the willingness to do more, try new things, learn more.
You certainly are a role model for others. And if there's a telltale sign that you're doing a great job, it's how elaborate your Rolodex is. All the contacts that you have, everybody who wants to work with you. If that isn't a sign, I don't know what is. Vickie Gunnarsson, a rock star in tennis. So grateful to be able to feature you, your story, and what you continue to do, and learn more about your mentality and your drive and why you do this and how you keep pushing, and your persistence and your resilience, and how that has been such a benefit to the tennis industry and will continue to be the case moving forward. Vicki, I'm Bryan Fenley. Thank you so much for taking a couple minutes out of your day and talking about your story.
Thank you for having me, Bryan.